was such a fluke of how
Aren't they always?
that came to be. So I have a garden in my backyard, and I named it. Now this is a backyard garden, a suburban backyard garden, affectionately named Alexander Farm and Orchard. Two fruit trees at the time, and maybe an okra plant or two, and some tomato plants and cucumbers.
In
And so
Texas, in Texas now,
in
right?
Texas, in Texas. And so, and so the first year, I think the first year that I grew cucumber, I had way too many I overshot. I had maybe like 5 or 6 plants, and that's just crazy for a family of 4 with all those cucumbers.
You're listening to Your Money, Your Business, the podcast with me, Debbie Colburn. I'm a small business expert and a former professional accountant turned money mindset guide. And I am obsessed with helping you achieve all those things you've dreamed of and thought were out of your reach, with helping you figure this money stuff out. My goal on this podcast is to help you break the cycle of feast or famine with your cash flow and to help you grow your wealth and sustain it over the long term. We dive deep, we get real, and we get raw, discovering and exploring what is really possible for you and letting go of all those things that are holding you back. If you've ever thought it's not enough looking at your bank balance, or think, I'll never get that paid off, when you open up the credit card statement, maybe you're sick and tired of constantly being worried, of just getting by, and you know you're missing out on key opportunities again and again, or maybe you're done with the constant arguments over money, then this is absolutely the right place. We'll bring you a whole new way to look at money, profit, cash, wealth, tackle the challenges, share the ideas, the tips and the tactics and the strategies, and get you connected to the right resources. Think of this as your weekly prescription of money mastery development, and leave the hard work up to me. No matter what's going on in your life right now, I've got your back. Ready? Buckle up, take a deep breath, and join me in a conversation about breaking through to the next level. Hey everybody, and welcome to another thought-provoking interview of the Your Money, Your Business podcast. Today I'm joined by filmmaker, writer, producer, director, and entrepreneur Lisa N. Alexander. Lisa is a champion for the voices that need to be heard, and champion them she does. I was completely blown away and speechless at one point during my research at her ability to find the true story and build a story through film around that. Yet, like so many, her story doesn't start there. It starts in one of the most undesirable, rough areas of Los Angeles. And thanks to two very different grandmothers sharing wisdom with her as she grew up, she has built not just one successful business, but multiple, all while evolving herself into a strong leader and role model for women and helping others overcome their challenges. Lisa produced her first documentary, What Mercy Looks Like, in 2017, winning a gold Remmy at the 2018 World Fest Houston International Film Festival, and has gone on to produce multiple award-winning docudramas and client pieces like Just One and Spiral through her agency, Pretty Work Creative. Her latest project, My Father the Queen, is her first feature film, and you'll hear her talk about the challenges and the story behind why it is so important for her to do this project. Beyond being a filmmaker, Lisa brings exceptional perspective to the world of entrepreneurship at all life stages of business and in a variety of different business models. So, grab your notebooks, buckle up tight, and let's dive into my conversation with Lisa N. Alexander. Welcome, Lisa. I am super excited to have you here with us.
So thank you very much.
Let's just talk real quickly about the movie. Your movie is called and it's in it's in pre-production, right?
Correct. Correct.
It's called My Father the Queen,
Yes.
and I love that topic. So just tell us just a little bit about it. What's the sort of the through line, and how did it come about that that's what you wanted to do in this season of your life?
The film is called My Father the Queen, and it is a Black daughter's story about what it is to be brought up by a closeted gay man and his inability to give her what she needed growing up because he himself lacked so many things. You know, his own emotional, mental well being wasn't in a good space. So that kind of made him a crappy father. Does that mean that that happens to all closeted gay men or all closeted gay men crappy fathers? Absolutely not. But this is this one story. This is one story where this is how it happened. And I can talk about this because it's loosely, I want to emphasize that it's loosely based on my life. Once I got to writing, the characters, they took on lives of their own. And so I'm happy and very honored to be able to tell this story because the more that I talk to podcasters such as yourself and reach out to new audiences, I find out two things. First is that daddy issues have no gender, mommy issues don't have a gender. And that second, dysfunction doesn't know a color. You can be purple and still run across dysfunctional families. And so it was important to tell this story. And the feedback that I've gotten from all kinds of people is that this is absolutely a story that needs to be told, should be told, and that the capacity for healing is great because of the story and the way that it's told. So I am, again, honored to be able to share this story with the hopes that it does a whole lot of good, that a whole lot of compassion, a whole lot of grace will be given at the end of the film.
And we're going to talk about that word grace because you talk a lot into that word. And I think the timing of this, it's perfect. You know, there's such a discussion or lack of discussion on the various different areas in the LGBTQ community and the trans community and the whatever. And I remember in one something I was listening to, you were talking about how we can't possibly understand what was going on in our parents' lives or so on, because we said we can hear anecdotal stuff, but to actually understand that. And I think that's so true. And I've been pondering this a lot over the last few years. When I was 12, we lived in Guyana in South America for two and a half years. And as a white minority, today and all the way through my life, I can appreciate when people are in environments that are uncomfortable, but that they don't see the people around them as any differently. So what you're talking about is, I don't, whether it's privilege or whatever, and I hate going into that topic right away, but I know that I can't appreciate what other people have gone through, whatever it is, in any culture, but I can empathize with them and I can give them grace. And there was when you were talking about this, my mother is almost 90 years old. She'll turn 89 in July. My dad is turning 90, and she has had a robust friendship with many, many, many gay men all her life. So it was a norm in our family. So it's odd to have a family where that isn't the scenario. And whether it's because, and this is a little bit of a sideline, whether it's because she's very heavily involved in purebred dogs. And if you've ever watched the movie Best in Show, the all of the characters that are in there that are professional handlers and all that stuff, they're all based on all her friends. We can put all the names to them. So it was just an interesting little piece. So that's the first piece of the movie. We'll come back to that because I know you have an incredible story, and you're very passionate about women entrepreneurs, women business owners, and what you do in your studio. Oh my God, that the one you produced, the very first one. What's her name? It starts with a T. Trina. The line in the movie was, "I've had 6 live births and 9 miscarriages."
Oh, fan story.
Yes, and I thought
Yes.
you have to be a special kind of person like yourself, business owner, filmmaker, creator, empath, whatever, to be able to create that kind of work and get that message out there. So
Yeah.
that was such a powerful start to that thing. So let's go back, all the way back to, how
All the
did
way
you
back.
grow up? Because obviously some of this was just loosely based. So tell me about family growing up, influences, that type of thing.
So growing up, I grew up in Los Angeles, and people ask, "Oh, so where in Los Angeles did you grow up?" Los Angeles proper, born and raised in the hood, saw
That
the
would be
city.
that would be Crench. Is that Crenshaw?
Vermont, I won't call out the address. We lived on Century Boulevard, so Century in Vermont. We lived close to there. We saw the city burn during the '90 riots. My husband and I, we were still kind of newly married and with a little person. And we, yeah. So when I say I lived in LA, I lived in LA, not in the outskirts, you know,
Yep,
not West LA, not all the lovely little suburbs. No, it was Los Angeles proper. So I
yep.
grew up around there, grew up in Inglewood, California, which is now where the new stadium is and is totally unrecognizable to me now. The area is completely unrecognizable. But that's where I grew up. My grandmother uh, raised my sister and I a good portion of our school year. So we spent a lot of time with Nana Brown, and I will forever love that woman. She was feisty, she was an awesome storyteller. She was brilliant, and then it took me to become an adult to understand and to see what she actually accomplished, being a woman who was a sharecropper who grew up in Belcher, Louisiana, just outside of Shreveport. And to hear her stories and then be able to tie it all together once you become an adult and you read some history, the history that she didn't want to repeat, but would
Right.
just, talk about every so often, then it's like, oh, I get it. So this is a woman who worked as a domestic for many years. Then she made the migration out of the South into the West, into Los Angeles. And I think she worked at a bottle company for a minute, putting the metal caps on bottles for a minute. And then in her 40s, this woman decided she wanted to go back to school and become a nurse.
Wow.
And
Wow.
so she became a CV, I think it's a CVN or LVN. I'm not sure the title, but I have her graduation pin. But I marvel at the wonderful ancestry that I come from. This is an amazing woman. And I got to see her. I saw her. She had lifelong relationships. And so those are the things that are important to me because I saw them. I saw my grandmother emulate them.
Hmm.
And so we spent a lot of time with Nana Brown. So that meant you watched Young and the Restless. That's a soap opera here in the States. And
Yep.
then you watched The Price is Right. There
Hmm.
was this continuum, how
Yep. The
TV worked.
constant daytime TV.
That's
Yep.
that's what we did. That's what we did when there wasn't school or summer vacations and we were with Nana. That's what you did. That's how you spent your day. And so that was childhood. That was a safe space for me. And I didn't always appreciate who my Nana was. And again, it took me to become an adult and realize why she did some of the things she did, some of the conversations we had. Like Nana told me, she was like, "Be independent. You don't need a man."
Hmm.
It's like, Nana, I was in love. I was like, "What are you talking? I don't, what do you mean?"
That was so out of the box at the time.
Yes,
Yep.
it was. Yes, it was. And so I appreciate the mindset or the understanding that she had. She may not have conveyed all of it, just gave you the snippet. So I grew up with a very strong grandmother and love her dearly still to this day. Then I have another grandmother, my paternal grandmother. She was my protector. So I have I had aunts and I had my father who loved to antagonize me. That's the best way I can put it. They would say that it was just poking fun or we're just playing with you, girl, and why are you doing all that crying? But I was very sensitive as a kid. I was that sensitive, cried at the drop of a hat, just very sensitive. And instead of my father being my protector and protecting me from all the, we would call it bullying, but they call it, we're just playing with you. But
Right.
they got great pleasure out of watching me cry. So
Mm.
my grandmother, she was a large woman. She would grab me, she would scoop me up in her arms and tell them it's like, y'all leave my baby alone. And I love that woman to this day as well. That's my grandma Betty. And so I grew up with two very remarkable women in my lives, and they led very different lives, different approaches to life. And so I had the benefit of both of these fantastic women to kind of nurture me and guide me into the woman that I am today.
That's fantastic. It provides a great contrast of how you can be two different people, but also independent and focused on certain things. So I love that because then that gives you the inklings of what you want to do with your life. And I can relate to the uh, the empathy. I have a grandson that's here. He's the youngest of four grandkids, and he's like his father. At the slightest anything, the tears start to well up, and it could be just simply doing math homework because he's just been diagnosed as dyslexic. Although we knew he was dyslexic because his dad is dyslexic, and he's like a little thing. But the slightest little anything, and he had the unfortunateness of having two strong bullying
Mhm.
second wife, the second wife who bullied the little child. So
Hmm.
yeah, it's hard when you're an empath because there are people who get great joy of, you know, making people feel uncomfortable, and you don't want to do that. So are you an only child?
I am not. I had a sister, she passed away in 2017. So she was my younger sister, but she passed away in 2017. So now it's just me.
No, it's
So
just you.
it's just me. So I lost my nana. Mama passed away in 2016, and then my sister passed away almost a year to the day later. I think it was maybe 15 months afterwards, my sister passed away. So just me.
That's that's sad. So your husband, he's also
Yes.
from the same part of LA. So you have been together since the very beginning. Is
Long
that?
time. Yes, yes. Long time. So June 27th is when we officially started dating, June 27th, 1985. So I was maybe that much illegal
Yeah.
because he was 18, I was 16. So I could have still
Really?
been jail bait if
Oh,
anybody wanted to make
yes.
a call. So thank God we are past that. But yeah, we've been together that long. So married 35 years, and this June we'll make what 37 years together. So
Yeah. And that would almost be an oxymoron for the couples or peoples or relationships coming out of that area, almost for everybody, because from that generation it was like a 50-50, not together. So you must have been soulmates or something that yin and yang complemented each other.
yin and yang, absolutely. Yin and yang. My husband, he says, it's like, you're the nice one in this relationship. And he says he
Ooh.
has to work on it. He says, and I'm giving away his secrets. He says, people call, they just say, oh, he's so nice and he's a pleasure to work with. And he says, well, just don't know how hard I'm keeping it together and really trying not to go off on people.
Oh, well, you have to have those, and it's nice to have, um, because he works with you in the business, right?
He does on a
He's just
part-time basis. So when we
Yeah,
first started out full-time, and then he's gone back to a 9 to 5.
yeah. So he's got his thing, and you've got your thing, but in the business dynamic, you're the visionary, right?
Yes.
In there, so you've got all the ideas of the direction, and in your structure of your business. So we're bounced just a little bit. Do you have someone who then takes all those ideas, your integrator type person, or do you have your fingers in everything?
I kind of have my fingers in everything. And then Elgin is so brilliant. I can say that about my husband. He's a brilliant. I've often said that I love him for his mind, because the man is absolutely brilliant in his ability to see and to put together things that I may be missing. And so, to understand Elgin is to understand that he worked in quality control for like almost 20 years. And so that's being trained to find the anomalies. That's being trained to find what's odd, what's the missing piece. And so you bring that to a set, you bring that to a script, you bring that to any video production, and the man is brilliant. And people would sometimes when we would work with clients and they didn't understand, and I would just tell them, it's like, whatever he says, just do it,
Just do it,
because
yeah.
he's seeing something the rest of us are not seeing. And sure as anything, as soon as we get back, and we get back to Video Village and we're looking at the video, and it's like, it was perfect. And so
Wow.
I appreciate his ability to see and to understand. Being married 35 years, being together for 37, he knows me kind of like nobody else knows me,
Mhm.
right? And so if I articulate something or give a hint at to what I'm thinking of, he already knows what it is, and runs with it and go, it's this, do this. He knows how to enact my vision. And so I will
Wow.
always love and appreciate.
That is everybody. This is one of the things that I find that a lot of business owners, especially new ones, they don't understand that they think they have to be everything, but almost every long-term successful business has that balance of this is, and it's not even just this is your job and that's my job, is that this is where you shine and this is where I shine, and together we are the moon shining on everything. And so it's tricky to find them. Not everybody is as lucky to you as you to marry into. Marry it.
And
I
I
need
get
myself a
that.
better algae.
I get that, and it's something that I'm very grateful for, because I know this can be hard, because communication is so important, and that's something that I'm always working on, is better communication and how to evolve as a communicator and a storyteller. And so Elgin is brilliant, and he challenges me. He'll praise and absolutely compliment you when you've done an excellent job. But if you're open to honest critique on how to improve and evolve and grow in whatever it is that you want to do, the man I mean, he can offer excellent critique. He would always encourage me, watch your videos, watch your interviews, and his advice has helped me tremendously. And so
Well,
I
obviously.
am part of who I am because of him, and we allow each other to grow. And I would hope that he would say that I have contributed to his growth and his own personal success and what it is that he wants to see and do in life.
And that with any business, I hear this a lot in coaching groups and so on, is women that say, well, my husband doesn't support me, my male partner doesn't support me. And it's devastating to hear, because you and I both know that it's not necessary, but it's really kind of nice if your partner is at least close to your biggest cheerleader. But so often when a lot of it comes back to money. They'd like to be your biggest cheerleader, but especially for people starting out and so on, is they're thinking money. And while they say I can't support you, it really means I can't support you because I don't believe in your vision. What was your first business and how did you get into it? I know there's a story behind it. If you're open to sharing all that, because I took a look at the website and I would have been an instant customer at the time. It's beautiful.
Okay, let's see. So I am, I guess, what they would call a serial entrepreneur. I had my first, oh wow, my first freelance business was called Vision Graphic Designs back in LA. So that's if, if you meet a graphic designer and they tell you that they don't want their own business or don't see themselves as working, they may not be telling you a whole truth because every designer that I've ever met has always wanted to work for themselves.
And why
And
is
so
that? Why is that?
the autonomy of it all. So the ability to produce and create work, but you still have clients at the end of the day that you have to work with. And clients don't always agree with your vision. And sometimes you just have to give the client what they want. It may never see the light of day as far as your portfolio is concerned, because you go, oh my God, this is garbage. And I would never show this to anyone. But this is what the client want and pay top dollar for. So you give the client absolutely what they want.
Okay.
So that and I think that's across the board. Any, especially when you start talking about the arts, and arts is it's so subjective. So even graphic design. So, there's like, no, I want this over here, and I want a black box with white type, and it's like, oh my God, really though?
So that got to be too much. Is that what happened?
Well, I've always loved graphic design. That's how my career started. So again, graphic design is nothing more than storytelling. It is communicating information, putting it on. At that time, it was on a printed page because I predate the internet.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
I predate the internet. So this was creating for printed materials at the time, and this is the 90s, and whereas the web is still very new, and I think it was CMS templates or websites, these wireframe. Oh God, they were horrible, and you couldn't do much. Anyway, that's how we started. So that
Right.
kind of it's all storytelling. So if you're communicating anything, it's all storytelling. And then I think the business that you're talking about is Alexander Farm and Orchard. Is it the soap
That's the
business?
one. That's the one. It's beautiful.
That was such a fluke of how
Aren't they always?
that came to be. So I have a garden in my backyard, and I named it. Now this is a backyard garden, a suburban backyard garden, affectionately named Alexander Farm and Orchard. Two fruit trees at the time, and maybe an okra plant or two, and some tomato plants and cucumbers.
In
And so
Texas. In Texas now,
in
right?
Texas, in Texas. And so, and so the first year, I think the first year that I grew cucumber, I had way too many I overshot. I had maybe like 5 or 6 plants, and that's just crazy for a family of 4 with all those cucumbers. That
Totally.
and
Totally.
you can't. I haven't found a way to effectively, if you can you freeze cucumbers? I haven't
Nope.
found a. I didn't think so. Pickle them, and we don't eat that
Pickle.
many pickles, right? And so I
Yeah.
couldn't give them away. I was taking them to the food bank, because I do believe in that, and you share the abundance. And so I would take them over to the food bank, and then I decided it's like, well, you know what? It's like I can make soap out of these cucumbers, and I'll give them away to clients. And it took me about 8 months to finally initiate or implement this soap making activity. So I made the soap, found my recipe, made the soap, took a picture, and because I am who I am, I made a pretty label for it, wrapped it in some pretty twine, some jute twine, put a label on there, took a picture of it. That was my first product photo shoot, put it on the internet, and I had an order for 60 soaps the next day.
Crazy, right? It's how you stumble into things when in fact these businesses, and so many people have these stories, I call them practice businesses, but they sort of take the pieces that you've already learned and you put it together, but it becomes part of how you evolve yourself and cleanse yourself to
Mhm.
get yourself to the next level, and it
Absolutely.
teaches you something along the way. And I
Absolutely.
think that's probably what happened. Is that right?
Absolutely. Because as a designer, as a marketer, those are service based businesses. Product based businesses, that's completely different. How you
Mhm.
operate those, because now you have inventory and SKUs and all. Where do you store all the things? And now you have to buy supplies. And Oh God, it's a whole thing. It is a whole thing. Now you are especially you are a manufacturer. I was a
Mhm.
manufacturer, and then getting insurance. Not everybody would insure soap makers because you are manufacturing and you're
Right.
manufacturing out of your home.
And you're in
So
the health and wellness space. Yeah.
absolutely. So I know that I remember this, that the laws are a little different in the US versus soap makers. Like I was in a soap group, and the laws are completely different in the UK, completely different in
Mhm.
Canada as to
Yep.
what you can and can produce, and licensing and things of that nature. It's the wild, wild west out here in the States,
I
you know.
know.
It's the wild, wild west.
Yep.
So, but
So,
it
and
was
you got to grow your cucumbers at the same time.
right? And so it was such an experience. And so we kind of became these homesteaders. We, have water, rain barrels now to catch rainwater. And, the garden has expanded. I don't make soaps like I used to. Pretty much now I make them for ourselves, for my family, and maybe I'll give some away. But that is a huge undertaking. It is a
Mhm.
huge undertaking. And then selling at a space where you can become profitable, because you have to know how much time did it take you from the time you opened up the lye, poured it in the water, do all the things
Yeah.
until it is packaged and ready to go. So you have to account for all that time.
Yep.
You have to count for materials, labels that you print out, the string all of it's a lot. That's a
Yeah.
lot.
And then someone comes along, and now you're in a space that's a commodity,
Yeah.
and they're undercutting you, and there's only so much pretty that,
Yes.
without mega investment when you're in a product based business, that
Absolutely.
to get you to that next level. I remember one of the coaches that I worked for with through Ryan Lovac. He does the Ask Method. He was talking about. He's also in Texas. He's in
Mm,
Brownsville, right near Mexico, and he was talking about he and his wife's first business, which was making necklaces out of Scrabble tiles. You might
wow.
remember that, and so they had taken that business to multiple hundreds of thousands, maybe even $1 million in revenue. But all of a sudden, the Chinese manufacturers caught on, and so it's like
Done.
they're short lived, right?
Yes.
There's we look at the candles that are for sale in just about any of these stores. They're not being
Right.
produced by the person like yourself who was out,
Hmm.
you know, personally talking to the cucumbers and then putting everything together to make sure that you
Right.
had the most magnificent product.
Hmm.
They're just being slapped out in China or Malaysia or any one of those things. But it's a
Right.
great experience, right?
I loved it. I met some amazing people, and I learned just so much. It was a different kind of business lesson for me in taking care of your customers and being insured and labeling correctly and finding your recipe. So I had maybe like three recipes that I used on a regular, and then you become a makeshift perfumer because I would only use essential oils, and then
Yeah,
learning you have to have a base note and a top note, and essential oils don't last long
no, they
term
do.
in a soap. And so, you always have people shoving soaps in their noses like, I don't smell anything. And it's like,
I know it's bananas. One of the quotes that really struck me, and we've talked about families dynamics, and not all families have stuff. Is you said, I know drama. Matt, do I know drama?
oh, I
Is
know it
that
well.
that's your family, right? I have one of those too.
Yeah, I would say that would be my life. I know drama, and I know it well. I know it from family, I know it from church. Growing up at the black church, oh, there is absolute if you've ever seen Greenleaf,
Yep.
I could have been a writer on the show. I could have been a writer on the show, no lie. There's just so much that goes on behind the scenes. And so this is something that I know well, and I can write drama probably in my sleep. Just all
Mm,
the plots and the subplots and all the nuances on what it takes to make a good drama.
yeah. And it's
Yeah.
funny because there are people who bring drama into their business. They create their business owners that create drama in their own business. There's the people who create drama in their families. And you mentioned the church and drama in the church.
Hmm.
And another quote that I heard you use was, I don't think it's a quote. It's a, let's call it a generic phrase that's used in the. And again, I do apologize if I use any of the wrong terminology, but within the Black community, where they say therapy is for white folk,
Yes,
and we go to church.
absolutely.
And do you think that's where the drama comes from? Is because it's
Mm,
a form of therapy.
listen, so unresolved issues show up as drama. We'll call it drama. It shows up in this dysfunction that we have in our families because we have unresolved internal issues, or we have unresolved issues with people within our family, and these dynamics that go unchecked results in all this drama. And so when church has always been a cornerstone, the cornerstone for the Black communities coming out of slavery, civil rights era, even to the present day, the Black church is still pretty foundational for a lot of families. And we didn't have, and so I don't blame the church for this thought belief that depression, it's spiritual, and you just come to church and you'll be okay. Because if you look at a certain time period, we didn't have access, we barely had health care,
Mhm.
especially if you're looking at coming out of slavery. If you look at those early years, reconstruction, we barely had to, we
It's access to resources.
absolutely,
You
absolutely.
you look at, we can, whether we're looking, and I don't want to go, we're not going down the religion thing, but if we look at any one of the countries that are not G8 countries,
Mm-hmm.
access to resources at one point in time, having a cell phone, a mobile phone, was a resource that was inaccessible to much of the world. Now that's not. You can go literally anywhere in the world,
Right.
and there are things. But to understand that there was a time where
Yes.
they didn't have that. You would travel to, some of the remotest countries in Africa, and tourists would be bringing pens and pencils because of the simple lack of resources.
Resources.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And that's, it's so important to have the resources and to understand that even still in our countries, that there are people who don't have access
Mm-hmm.
to those things, and not having access to those things, even including going to a library if you so choose to read a real book, instead of doing an audible, because
Right.
obviously if you don't have extra finances going on something like audible, you can't do that. So
Right.
your knowledge base of what is possible for you is directly linked to access to
Access.
resources. in
Access to
in
resources.
yeah,
Yes.
in when I was growing up, my equivalent to, your the therapy for white is for white folk, is
Mm-hmm.
therapy is for broken people.
Oh,
That's Yeah, I
wow.
know. When you
Wow.
said that, I went, because it had crossed my mind a couple of times, but that's what I grew up with.
Mm.
Is it's for broken people, and if you're not broken, you don't need to have anything fixed. Not that therapy fixes you, but those are the words that go
Right.
along with it. So we all have our crap.
Right. I remember, I think it was definitely, I heard it from Oprah, and it's a quote that I grew to appreciate because it was so true. Because a lot of times when you're going through things, when you're going through family drama or whatever it is, work, drama, church, whatever it is, that no one leaves out of here unscathed.
Mhm.
And I found some sort of comfort in that, knowing that everybody's got something. Everybody has something that they are dealing with. Now, are there levels to the, to trauma or to whatever it is you're going through? Absolutely. But we're not, no one is leaving out of here problem free, unscathed, happy all the time. That just does that's not life. And so that point is like, well, if therapy is for broken people, I would say if you're breathing, you could probably use some therapy, even if it's for a session or two to help you work through some issues or to work through just to talk some stuff out, you know?
Yeah, it's important. It's so important to get another perspective. And I think it's most, this is my personal opinion, is it's most valuable when you yourself understand that no matter who you talk to, they do bring bias. They can have their education, they can have their certifications, they can be the best therapist in the world or best person to talk to, but they do bring personal biases. And as long as you recognize that and don't, kind of don't go in believing that it is gospel of what they're saying, then you are going to get something out of getting a different perspective from someone. And that's
Absolutely.
business is like that, right? We all go in thinking that we know everything, and what we need is someone, even if they don't know a lot about business, to say, have you considered this? What about doing this? Why are you doing that?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, so I got a lot of things here as we go through, just trying to figure out the ones we want to talk about. So we just talked that when we're talking about church, we were talking about generational cycles, and that's one of my uh, my big vision for the company is that several generations down the road, babies that are not even born yet,
Yeah.
there will be no such thing as scarcity mindset.
Mm.
And that's one of the reasons why I'm trying to get more diversity onto my podcasts and stuff, is to reach a bigger audience, because I understand that, like, I understand any surface level, not an expert on this.
Mm-hmm.
I understand that in certain cultures, and that when people look for mentors,
Mm-hmm.
their mentors may be the most representative of power and success in their culture, but it might actually not be the best for them for a long, successful, healthy, happy,
Mm-hmm.
alive future. And why I say that is because I recently was listening to a podcast with Wall Street Trapper. I don't know whether you followed him or not, talking about where the role models and mentors were within communities such as
Mm.
what you would have grown up.
Mm-hmm.
And they weren't the Warren Buffetts, but they
Yeah.
were very, very influential in their community. So
Absolutely.
a little bit of side note on
Absolutely.
that as we go through. So let's talk about what you said, that you could do a master class on daddy issues.
Yes.
And you said that and I went,
Yes.
oh yes, I want to see that 90-minute master class on daddy issues, because you would have it full.
Hmm.
So talk to me about daddy issues. How does it show up? What can you do about it? How does it affect you?
Sure.
Dive into that master class.
Absolutely. And I'll start with the quote, and you've probably heard me use it before, and it still holds true. So there is a quote that says that a father is a son's first hero and a daughter's first love. And then I'll say until they are not, or until
Mm,
they cannot fulfill that particular role. So if you have a father who is emotionally unavailable, who has his own set of mental health issues, who has his own unresolved trauma, if you have a man who is living a lie, can't live authentically, if he's got his own set of mommy issues or daddy issues, if he's been abused in any way and he has not worked through those issues or has not at least made the intention, set the intention that how I was raised or how I encountered a childhood, I will not duplicate that onto any offspring that I'm responsible for. So if you have a man, masculine energy in that space who is not able to do that, then more than likely harm will occur. It can be unintentional, but harm still occurs. And so, what that harm looks like. So, for me growing up, I was nitpicked to death. That's not literally, but everything's like, what's wrong with your hair? And are you getting fat? And it was just always this nitpicking by the person who's responsible for me being on the planet. So there was always something wrong. We're both under the same astrological sign. So part of what our astrological sign says is that we are perfectionist. And that may be a little true. That may be just a little true. Just a
A
little.
little wee bit.
Just, you
Yeah.
just a little bit. And so I get that part of it, but there comes a time when you scale that back and you have to tell yourself that not everything is going to be perfect, or not everything can be perfect. Perfectionism does not exist. It only exists in the minds of crazy people like myself. So on occasion where it's like, Lisa, let the project go.
Yeah.
It's good. Let it go. Let it go. And so that nitpicking, that always finding fault, if you grow up with a parent who is always finding fault with what you do, and you never get the praise, you never get, oh, well, this went well, you did this well, congratulations. If it's always, this was wrong, this is, your hair's wrong, get a perm, all the things, then you begin to wonder about yourself as a young woman. You begin to wonder, even as a young child, always now I am seeking the approval of, I am changing who I am so that I can get your approval. And so when I shift shape, when I become something else, when I act outside of myself because I am trying to get your attention and I'm trying to get your approval and your validation, and I still don't get it, then the message to me is that I can do nothing right. There is always something wrong. I'm always going to be seeking approval. And my self value, my self worth, I don't have any. I
Right.
have none. And so then how does that manifest as you become an adult? It impacts the decisions that you make, the partners that you choose, your friends and careers, and it just weaves its way through your entire life. And then you don't speak up for yourself. You lose your voice, you lose your intuition, your sense to listen to your inner voice, because now it's corrupted because all you hear is the tape playing from the person that was supposed to love you.
Mm-hmm. Yep. It's fascinating. One of the things that the sentence that comes to me from that, and it played out in my life as well. I don't typically say that it's daddy issues for me, but I know it is the concept, because I have a very risk averse,
Mm.
relatively successful father who always landed on the right side of the fence. He's, as I say, he's just turning 90, so grew up with World
Mm.
War II around them, not participant in it. So there's that thinking right there. But what I learned from him is I was never good enough for anything other than used or hand-me-downs, because that's what I got. And he's cheap. There is no mixing the words. Successful, financially stable, cheap, and my way is the right way and the only
Mm.
way. And so for me, in my early career as a professional accountant, I know numbers. I worked with startup companies and mergers and acquisitions, $50 million. I know numbers. But if I, as an example, bought a house for $142,000 and sold it for $175,000, to him, I didn't make any money. That's
There's
basic numbers I did.
Yeah.
And I got that 142 from a house that I bought for 92. But in his mind,
Wow.
because what I do with it, what I did with it, like buying the next house and the next
Mm-hmm.
house, was completely at odds with how he saw it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it's always been that way. And I've tried over the last number of years to, and I had a great growing up. It's
Mm-hmm.
upper middle class. We traveled all over the world, great education, everything that screams white
Yeah.
privilege. And yet I screwed my life up. But I could pinpoint it all
Yeah.
back to this particular thing, because while what you're talking about is it whittles away at your self-worth and all that sort of stuff, but
Yes.
there's a side to it that I've seen in a lot of women, yourself, I can see it myself, where you go through these periods, either, it's early or mid, where self-worth goes down, but
Hmm.
confidence, when you're in independent scenarios that you create and your public persona, is you are very self-confident,
Hmm.
well presented, know your crap, and so on. And that, I say, but at a certain point in time, this confidence comes over and starts healing this self-worth as you start looking at the different pieces and so on. Is that what you found? Because obviously you are not sitting there as a woman massively lacking in self-confidence and self-worth.
No, I will say that it was a journey. So for me, it was having to unravel. So I'm a huge journaler. So I've had 20 years worth of journals. And so for me, that was my therapy, was write it all out. And then I could begin to see patterns. And it took me a while. So I've got maybe the first 10 years where I'm experiencing the same issues over and over again. And then somewhere around maybe year 10, 11, 12, 13, it's like, oh, and you start to unpack. And it takes time to, when you initially rip the Band-Aid off, it's like, ow, it's painful. And
Right.
so, you go through that shock of healing, and then you just start going back and you heal, and you can start making repairs. And then you understand that you have choice. Then you understand that, well, I could choose to see this differently. I could choose to value myself. I could choose to love myself. I could choose to, whenever I hear him in my head, what's wrong, I could choose to dismiss it. And it's like, yeah, I frequently talk to myself in that voice in your head. And it's like, look, shut up. We're not doing this today. You have those kinds of conversations. And
Yep.
I haven't been certified as crazy. I think I'm doing quite, I'm doing good,
Yep.
so far so
So
good.
does your little voice have a name?
No, I have not named
No.
just fear. What I found out, that a lot of it was fear. So it's fear, and then that the criticism, the constant criticism. And so I finally learned, and it's like, okay, just to silence those is just to get quiet. And it's like, y'all gonna be quiet and we're gonna get this done. And so I would often tell people, it's like, you do things with your knees knocking. You can be scared and you can still do it, and you'll do it with your knees knocking. So that's what me starting businesses early on, 2010s, around in there, it was me doing things with my knees knocking, because I was petrified, because I hadn't grown to the space that I'm in now. So a lot of that was my healing journey and reconstructing the narrative that I told myself.
Yeah. So you said you
Yeah.
had a really important word in there that I really would like to touch on, is discovering patterns.
Yes.
And that is, I talk a lot about this in my
Yes.
programs, because you can't change something if you can't see the pattern. And coming out of the accounting and the business world, obviously Excel sheets and Google Sheets are kind of in my wheelhouse. But that was, you can look at your life and you can say, oh, this happened and that happened. And my brother had this phrase. He doesn't remember ever saying it to me. It was like, he said, this is how I heard it. Life goes in 4-year cycles. You go, it's going along good, 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 good. You have 4 years, all of a sudden something happens, you crash to the bottom, then you rebuild. Somehow or other, my
Wow.
brain took that as the truth, which
Mm.
is garbage. But it would go through that. But it wasn't until I joined a, a, an interesting money mindset coaching program, which was very, very woo woo. So, which for me was quite, at the time, what was like stepping off a cliff. But one of the exercises was journaling all of your money memories
Mm.
from as far back as you could go where there was a negative financial output.
Mm-hmm.
And she had said, put about 20 of them down, do about 20 of them. An hour and a half later, I was at 100.
Oh.
and
Oh.
and I could look at it because my mind is pretty logical. I can see patterns and go, damn, there. No wonder.
Mm-hmm.
No, it took me 50 years to figure out that pattern.
Yes.
But that it works for everything. It works for
Yes.
relationships. It works
Yes.
for, eating. It works for
Yes.
business. So I love that. But journaling is a great way to start getting those things out. So let's talk about your business right now. So
Yes.
it's multifaceted. I'm going to say it's multifaceted, right?
Yes. Yes, it
Um,
is.
so you have the filmmaking side, you have the agency side.
Absolutely. I love how you said that. Yes, that's exactly what I have.
and
Yes.
and in on the film, I think I'm not sure whether it's on both of them. You do a lot of work with not-for-profits.
Yes.
So let's talk about your business, how it's set up, how you got
Sure.
into it, why you chose to be where you are, and then we'll segue through that to your biggest project and talk a
Sure.
bit about that.
So I started out, Pretty Work Creative is the name of the agency. And so we started out as marketing and branding. That's what we would do for small businesses. This is also during the time where everybody was a marketer and it just was crazy out in these spaces. And so I will never forget the one time I came across a client, potential client, and they wanted me to redo their website, right? And so I'm trying to get my proposal together. So I go to their website and I cannot tell what they do because they've got 3 or 4 different businesses on the same website and I'm confused. And so I sent her an email and I said, "Hey, it's like I'm working on this proposal and I would just like some clarity." It was like, "What business are we going to focus on this website? I'm a bit confused." And she said, "Lisa," she says, "I just spent like 10 grand with a marketing coach and they never asked me that question."
Oh my.
That's the kind of foolishness and folly I would encounter out in these small business streets.
Mm.
Um, and it's, all her money was gone. She had just paid the 10K to the coach. And so there was no money to update and, tear it all up and, well, let's start over and, do this properly, go through a process. And it's like, what business do you want? Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today for what? It's like, what's our purpose? And so
Yeah.
I found a lot of that. I found that back then, maybe a lot of small businesses didn't understand marketing and the importance of marketing. And so, in reality, and so this is where those daddy issues kind of weave their way into your business. I was always talking to the wrong people.
Mm.
I was always talking to the wrong people. Myself should have been definitely going the pure agency route and doing RFPs, working with government, with big businesses, people that understood marketing, and that would hire me as a woman-owned business. So I shied away from certification, and so those daddy they absolutely do weave their way, and they can impact your money. Just let
Mm-hmm.
me say that it can impact your money. So me thinking that what I had wasn't good enough or I didn't know enough. And here's the other lie that got me and messed up a lot of my money in the early days was that because I didn't acquire the knowledge like everyone else,
Like
I
everyone
came an
else.
untraditional route, that somehow it was devalued. If the knowledge is the knowledge, regardless of how you came across it.
Yep.
If you
Yep.
know it, you know it. And so
Yeah.
I devalued what I knew because I didn't come a traditional route. I didn't come up through agencies. I didn't come up doing all these things, but still had the knowledge. And so I shortchanged myself because I'm still working through my daddy issues that say I'm not good enough and that there's something
Right.
wrong.
Yep. Yeah.
So my truth is, I was talking to the wrong people those first couple of years when I started my business, and it was frustrating. And so I tell business owner this, it's like your business will grow at the rate that you're willing to work on yourself.
The 100%, 100%,
Your
100%.
business, it will grow as soon as you're willing to work on yourself and work on your issues and you can see yourself, and that maybe you don't need to do everything in your business. I have never let me be real clear, and I will go on the record. Is my mic working? I will go on record. I never wanted to be the person to do all the things in my business. Back when I was 18 or 20, 21, 22, it was always to create a space to hire more people that looked like me so that we could all create something amazing. I would bring in the business and then just give these wonderful people a place to express their talent, do amazing work. It was never for me to do all the work. It was never for me to be doing all the websites, all the things that I know how to do because I had to learn them in order to do business for myself. That was never the plan.
Yeah.
That wasn't the
I
plan.
and people need to people women in particular need to hear that it's okay to be the ideas and still know how to do all the things and
Mhm.
bring people in to do that because those people you bring in are probably a lot better at it than you are even when you're
Absolutely.
really good at it.
Thank Absolutely. And so I know how to do a lot of things well. Do I like doing some of the things? No, I don't. So I had somebody ask me the other day, it's like, Lisa, can you help us do X, Y, and Z? And it's like,
Mm-mm.
it's like, can it be collaborative? I'll work with you as a group, but it's like for me to take ownership. And it's like, no, just
No,
no. No, no.
that's fantastic. That is fantastic. There was all these things coming in while we're talking about those things. So let's you've got your agency, you've got your film thing.
Yes.
You're helping clients, you're helping some not profits getting their stories out because
Yes.
that is.
Yeah.
Let me just segue. What is your if I was to ask you what is your unique ability, the thing that only you can do in your business? What is that?
I can see where the story is. I can tell you what makes for a great story. I
Perfect.
can
Perfect.
listen to you, and it's like, It's like, that's not necessary. Here's where the story is. This is what needs to be amplified to the audience. This is what you need to say to get out in front of the public to attract your customer. I know good story.
Perfect. And with that, how did you know that My Father the Queen was something that you had to? I know you started to write it as a book, but then
Yes.
you decided that it would be better served as a film. So let's go down that rabbit hole.
S- My father, the queen. So, to be quite honest, it was part of my healing journey to write this out. And one of the things that I know for sure is that this isn't my experience is not unique. As much as I would love to think that I am the only person that ever experienced such, my wisdom and the gray hairs hiding behind Miss Clairol on top of my head tell me otherwise, tells me that I am not the only woman going through this or the only man who's ever experienced this. And so I wrote the story, I wrote the script sincerely so that other people could see themselves and perhaps find understanding, find grace, find healing for the things that they've gone through. And so for the main character, her name is Kelly, and her father, his name is Walter. And so I want grace for Kelly and for Walter. And so this one person who read the script, they were, reading through it, and she said, I felt some kind of way. And it was like, I'm rooting for Walter. I want Walter to win, because they understand. So it's writing these complex characters in such a way that you really do empathize, or you get a window into their lives, and then you begin to understand. And then once you can open up understanding, once you can really see people, once you can see them as human, as people, living, breathing people with lives and families and all the things, then maybe we can start extending grace.
And that is so important. We sort of touched on it earlier on, is
Yeah.
the inability right now of so many people in the world to take that deep breath and
Hmm.
extend grace,
Hmm.
and understanding is the wrong word, but appreciate that other people have different life experiences, and that has in many ways shaped how they allow themselves to respond and react
Hmm.
to whether it's triggers or other people and so on. So I kudos. I think this is going to be an amazing movie, because I know it's something that the world needs to
Yeah.
see. The challenge being for you, though, is that you're currently crowdfunding, right?
Yes.
What are the, why did you choose? I, I know nothing really about filmmaking. I was initially part of a docu series on Netflix where they were doing interviews and so on. So I know a
Hmm.
certain piece. But why choose crowdfunding?
Hmm.
What's the number that you're looking for? And what's the time frame?
Sure. So I can I'll
You
work my
go
way
right
up to
ahead.
that answer.
Yep.
So being a woman filmmaker, it would have been much easier to do this as a documentary. If I had chosen to tell this story in a documentary form, there are a whole lot of grants that I could have competed for and probably gotten had I chose to go the documentary route. But I chose full feature film to tell this story because I know that that is the best way to pull people in, to get them attached to this story, right? And so, because I decided to do a full feature film, they're getting fun. Now it's a different experience funding this film. It's a completely different venue, avenue, path that I have to take. So somebody once said, they said, Lisa, you're just laying down track for a train that's coming. So this is me. Everything that I'm doing now is laying down train ties for this funding train that will eventually catch up to what we're
Yep.
doing. So feature films are expensive. They just are. And I'll say this, that regardless of your color, regardless of your gender, no gender, regardless of sexual orientation, no sexual orientation, film making is hard. It is a difficult process, regardless of who you are. White, male, black woman, doesn't matter.
Mhm.
Now, there are your level of hard increases when you increase those those things, right? So those special things that make us all special. So the
Right.
darker your skin gets to be, if you love somebody who is not considered normal, then it gets a little harder to get those stories funded and get them told.
Right.
Despite all
So
of
you
this,
didn't pick an easy topic.
no, I didn't. I I didn't. I did, and it amazes me the amount of hatred, just hatred on a community, and you don't and you've never engaged anyone in the community. You just
It's
have lumped
shocking, isn't it?
you have lumped everyone into one big dish, and we hate the whole thing. And so part of what this move, I am not part of some great gay agenda. No one reached out to me and say, tell their story and help us further an agenda. That is not that is not how this came about. This is, again, loosely based on, this is my experience. I can
Mhm.
talk about this. This is what happened to me. This is what, loosely what happened to me, and how life happens, right? And the beautiful thing right now is that I have so many, for every person that has criticized the work, that has made fun, it's like, oh my God, it's like, I don't support the LGBT community. It's like, I don't want to hear anything about it, or I can't do it, or it's against my religion. And, all these things, for as many times as I've heard that, I have heard from people with lived experience, Walters, Kellys, and everybody's in between, Carolyn's. I have heard from them, and they say, I see myself in this story, and it needs to be told because no one's ever talked about this. I had someone who covered my script and they said, Lisa, this has never been seen on screen before. It's like you've happened on something that just has not been seen. So of course there's, you expect some pushback. That's normal.
Hmm.
That's with everything.
Yep.
But at the same time, in my business, Pretty Work Creative, I work with nonprofits, right? And so it is to help them tell their stories and to help amplify voices that need to be heard because nonprofits do amazing work out here in the community and that work needs to be amplified. Legislators, politicians, community leaders, business people need to see and know how their decisions impact regular people. So if you want to know how something is impacting normal folk, regular folk, talk to the nonprofit leader who is servicing that community.
Right.
They
Right. For
know.
sure.
They absolutely know. And so if you want to know what it's like to be the daughter of an LGBTQ member, ask the daughter.
Hmm. Yep. And that's you. Exactly. And
Ask
that's
me.
what makes the story so much richer is
Mm,
that sprinkling of personal experience on top of it.
yes.
It just adds those pieces, and it will take time.
Yeah.
As I was, you haven't put the number out there. This
Oh,
is
I can
my
tell. So
please,
we
please.
are currently we're currently raising $50,000. Now, the $50,000 is not how much it costs to make this film. $50,000 is what allows us to start having conversations
Hmm.
with key people, and you need that. You need to start having these key conversations, right?
Yeah.
Um, so we're looking at a budget of maybe 1.5 to $2 million to produce this film.
Hmm. That's
And
and if you'd asked me a number of years ago if I thought that was a lot, I would say no. I don't think that that's a lot. I actually took when I was reading the numbers,
mhm,
I can do them in my head, but I always want to do it on a calculator. I went, okay, so there's 8.3 billion people in the world, and there's 330 million people in the United States. And if you took I don't know whether you're a Democrat or a Republican or whatever, but uh, not, and this is,
yes,
believe me, everybody, this is not a support of
right, right,
Donald
right.
Trump. But if you took a book out of his playbook and said, everybody who has an interest and wants to learn more about this and see this movie be produced,
Mhm,
$5, $10
mhm.
from it'll come so quickly,
You
but
would think.
it's getting it's visibility. It's
Yes,
the
yes.
same challenges for businesses. It's visibility, and it's making it, you know, visibility, passion about the product,
Mhm.
the product or whatever you're talking about, and ease of getting the dollars to you. It's
Absolutely.
three simple steps.
Yes.
That's all it is, and that's what we're going to help you in a little wee bit is to help
And
get
that's a
started.
part. So there was a strategy to to all of
Yeah,
this.
I know.
There was a strategy, and it's talked to as many people. It didn't matter if you were gracious enough to give me time and space to share this message, I was going to share it because you never know what gets picked up when and who hears what. So I have said yes to I've said yes to everybody. I've
Well,
only
I
had
just
one regret, and it's like, what in the world was that? But so everything else,
well, this is fantastic. I have another question. You when I was going through, you said that you had one particular actress that you really would love to have come on.
yes,
Gabrielle, I'm gonna put her name out there, Gabrielle Union, because
yes,
you never know who's looking at the podcast. But I went, who is Gabrielle Union? So I went, checked, and went, yeah, she's the amazing actress that plays she cleans the money for the Russian mobster in Bad Boys 2.
hmm,
And it's like, yeah, she would be, and she has an interest
yes,
in what you're talking about in this
absolutely,
film. So what a fabulous, vision board
yeah.
leading actress for your movie. So I just
And
wanted to get that in there too.
I think she would be awesome. I think it's like if that's my I she recently did a film called The Inspection. Amazing film.
Really?
That that's a good piece of filmmaking right there, and I'm so sorry I cannot call the writer and the director's name, but brilliant work, and it's actually based on his life as well. So he's
Hmm.
a LGBTQ community member, who went to the Marines, and so it's that whole experience of being in the military and
Yep.
not getting the love or the respect of his mother. He's brought up a single parent home. And so it's a brilliant story, beautifully done. That's some beautiful cinematography. The story was great, so I'm loving it for all the things. So and then Gabrielle plays the mother, and I was like, oh, she played that role. And I had recommended the film to somebody else, and it's like I didn't even recognize that was Gabrielle until the end of it. So
Wow.
beautiful. And I think she could really bring Kelly to life. I really think she could. Not to say that there aren't other equally as brilliant and wonderful actresses. It's like, hey, I'm taking calls. Call me. I'm taking calls. So that's part of what we're doing during this fundraising is taking calls, having meetings, and waiting for
Excellent.
the WGA strike to end. Waiting for
I know.
the we're waiting for the streaming services to fix their very broken system right now and how it pays. And
I saw your blog post on that, and of not being in that world, but things will things will change. They're changing in online as far as YouTube and all those
yeah,
TikToks compensating creators.
yes,
Creators are getting more notice, and their
yeah,
voices are more uh, are being heard more. So it does take time, but I know that it will happen in all different areas.
yes, it
So I
will.
want to be mindful of your time because I do have
Sure,
another interview after this, and since we had a time zone mix up on my fault,
no
I
worries.
do want to just if you could just let people know how they can reach
Sure.
out to you and support your film or your agency, whichever one tickles their fancy, as we say.
Sure. Okay, so I'll do this real quick. So if you are interested in donating, making a donation to the film, you can go to fundmyfatherthequeen.com. If you want to learn more about the project, you can also go there or go directly to the website, myfatherthequeen.com. If you want to get in touch with me, I'm on social media at Lisa N. Alexander. That's Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, also Twitter. I'm not on TikTok. Maybe by the end of the year I'll migrate over. But you can find me in those spaces. And if you are a nonprofit and you want us to help you tell your story and to work with you in marketing and making sure amplification and PR and communication and all those things, we would love to help you tell your story. And that's prettyworkcreative.com. That's how I personally stay in good trouble. We have a senator who passed away, John Lewis, the late Senator John Lewis, and he says if you're going to get into any kind of trouble, get into good trouble. So that's
Right.
trouble that matters. And so that was all around the voting rights and things of that nature. But that just really stuck with me. It's like, if you're going to get in trouble, get into good trouble. And so this work this is my good trouble.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I loved our conversation. I have learned so much, and I wish you the best. And we
Thank
will
you.
be back in touch to make sure that we're getting the best pieces so we can get everything out there for you.
Absolutely. Thank you so
Awesome.
much, Debbie. Thank
Thank
you.
you. Enjoy.
You too. Bye bye.
Okay, bye bye. So, this podcast got you thinking you'd like to go a bit deeper on this with me. You want to figure your money thing out? I have got so much more to share with you and to give you. And you're really ready to toss the shroud of money worries into the trash forever, to stand taller and more confidently in every decision and manifest the most profitable and successful year of your life, which means worry-free abundance in life and in business and so much more. Make sure to sign up for my free 4-week course where we're taking a deeper dive into how to transform that money situation in your bank accounts that's keeping you up at night. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. All you have to do is just pop over to the link bit.ly/boost-money-EQ. And invite a friend to go through with you, even family, or maybe coworkers or employees. It's a great way to get a money conversation going. And the more people in your community who are shaking up the scarcity mindset, the more our families and our communities will thrive. Don't be shy or embarrassed. Pass the link on to as many people as you can, because stats show that we never know what's happening in people's lives, especially when it comes to money. I cannot wait to see you inside. And yep, regardless if you sign up for TBN or not, this course is absolutely free. No strings attached. So much value handpicked for you inside it. You're for sure going to experience a transformation in a very short time. Come on, join us and have some fun. bit.ly/boost-money-EQ. Super excited, and I will see you there.